All right, welcome to the show. I'm Tiffany Hernandez. Today we have a wonderful guest with us who knows all things backwards and forwards for ADHD. Welcome, Shaye. Can you share a little bit about what you do?
Hi, Tiffany. Thank you so much for letting me come on and chat with you a little bit about this. This is a passion that I carry. What I do is I actually work with women to help them kind of stay out of that overwhelm, anxiety, not enough stuff, all those things that we carry in general. But when we have ADHD, it's like just exacerbated. It's
Yeah.
huge and it feels huge every day. So that's where I serve people and helping them get out of that.
Right. And what would you say some of the work that you've done, what is that experience like before they come to you and then after? How has that transformed? Because I know a lot of people are maybe skeptical about, do I really need a coach? And it's like, well, let's talk about what you can really get from that coaching.
Well, with coaching itself, what that does is it kind of takes that whole view that we have because we look at everything and everything's got those shinies and those squirrels and we want to chase after them. And
Yeah.
what the coach does is it kind of brings it in and helps you focus on that thing at that moment and then helps you to take those steps to where it is you're moving to. So it's kind of like a guide. I'm going
Yeah.
to guide you to where you want, not where I want, but where you want, and give you those processes and systems, not symptoms. We're already dealing with those,
I
but
know,
the
right?
systems to be able to go and move through that process because our brains don't function the same way. We don't
Right.
think the same process through from step A to step B. We're more like step A to J, back to D, over to Z, and then K, and we're kind of all over the place.
Yes.
Which, if we know how to harness that, then
Hmm.
that's what actually propels us so far forward in being able to be successful and being
Right.
able to just jump in. And then when we do that, when we learn that, we teach the clients that, then the clients then have that capability of teaching like their kids, if their children are dealing with
Yes.
ADHD, or working with their spouse and knowing how to communicate whether or not they have ADHD. So there's a lot of like little pieces, that we miss out on if we don't have somebody who knows how to teach that process and system.
Right. There's definitely gaps that that are most people are unaware of until somebody brings it to light.
Right.
And that's what I've noticed, just being diagnosed with ADHD later on in life. And, my parents are like, "What? You were always such a very focused child. Like you got all these things done." And I'm like, "Yeah, but nobody actually saw behind the surface what I was dealing with or how I actually masked and functioned in society, and I didn't know that that's what it was. We joke about, oh, yeah, that's my ADHD, or oh, yeah, I've got some OCD. It's like, no, no, this is real. And you need to validate that because a lot of
Yeah.
these issues you're dealing with are stemming from those challenges that you have. And it's not that they need to be
Right.
frowned upon because then we just feel like a
Right.
second class citizen. And so I've dealt with a lot of that. And I'm
Yes.
sure there's several of the clients that you deal with as well that have been almost going through a grieving process of, figuring out, okay, I have this thing. Now, how do I deal with it? And it's overwhelming, and I'm already overwhelmed. And now to see I have these problems, can you kind of walk us through
Hmm.
maybe how that person can really benefit from this? And like, what are those steps? Because my children also, I found out they have it as well. And so we're just now learning this whole new world of how to handle things and have the skills to do it.
ADHD in itself is very fascinating. It's being able to accept who you are the way you are, and we teach that out in the world. Be you, do you, all that kind of stuff. But the reality is that we can't be us if we don't know who we are.
Yeah.
And you are not, abnormal being diagnosed later. I was diagnosed in my late 30s, early 40s, somewhere in there, right? And I found out I had it because my child was diagnosed with it. And then it was like, oh my gosh, okay, so I have some of those symptoms too. And so I went and found out I was too. Now, what does that really mean? Because people are like, well, everybody has those symptoms. They're
Yes.
all like, no, they're not.
No.
Boys and girls exhibit them differently. And we didn't realize that until much later in life. There is a higher diagnosis rate for girls later in life
Yeah.
because it's shown differently. It's shown in a way that it's internal. Like you said, I was focused. I got good grades. I did this. I did that.
Hmm.
You're right. You were feeling frustrated. You were trying to do it as good as you could to be accepted. You were in
Yep.
that perfectionism stage. I get it.
Absolutely.
I think we were all there. And some of
Yeah.
us capable of doing that work and getting great grades, and some of us, like myself, were not. And so I thought, I guess I'm just going to be dumb for the rest of my life. But the
Right.
reality was, is I went to college and I was on the dean's list. What was the difference? The difference was the process. The
Yeah.
difference was that the way that it was done in, the regular school system, traditional schools, was very difficult for me to learn. But on the other side of it, when I was doing it in college and I got to pick how to do it, it was much different. That's how my brain worked. That's the process. I got my
Right.
bachelor's by doing one class at a time every 5 weeks or 6 weeks. So that allowed my brain to say, okay, we're going to only focus on one now. Make sure we keep those shinies in check. Let's go. But
Yeah.
it's only
That's
for
great.
5 weeks. So you get that boredom.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with this? We deal with it and being able to be open, accepting, and being willing to just trust our own instincts.
Yeah.
We've been taught not to trust ourselves because you're not doing it the right way. You're not doing it the way I told you. You're not doing it the way that you're supposed to. Okay, well, what if
Yeah.
there is no supposed to?
Right.
What if you learned the way that you did it? And so that's the most important thing I think is teaching people that it's okay to be different.
Yeah.
Not saying that you can make everybody different, but you yourself. It's okay if you're a little bit different than the other one. We have 9 children in our blended family. Okay.
Wow.
Of those 9 children, there's varying degrees of ADHD, and not
Right.
one of them do it the same. Not one of them. And so it's been very fascinating learning more and more over the last few years since I had a brain injury, a TBI, a mild TBI, which
Wow.
exacerbated the ADHD.
Oh,
So
wow.
everything I had in control and all those processes now we're gone.
Totally. Yeah.
So now I have to read it all over. So when you say you're walking into a whole new world, I hear you. It is a
Yeah.
whole new world.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't catch your breath because there's so
No.
much to learn and so fast.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, and when you're dealing with, family members who maybe don't want to accept that this is for real, this is a real
Mhm.
diagnosis, and like we're really actually struggling with this isn't something I'm making up, because I've also been told that
Yeah.
before too. And then
Huh?
it's a challenge. I know there's several other women who probably deal with the same thing where their husbands just maybe don't understand, or maybe their families just don't understand, and it's like, no, we're not trying to be challenging. We literally just think differently, and it doesn't need to be a negative, bad thing. But society has also told us that, well, to fit into society, you have to do it this way, and this is the only way, or you're different, and we can't do that. I think there's a little bit more inclusion now because all of the diversity that's been talked about, in more
Right.
ways than
Right.
just, neurodivergence and
Mhm.
all of that. But it's like, how do we express that? I have, and I know there's several others that struggle with, like, how do we deal with this on a daily basis, because nobody can understand what's going on in my brain.
Right. Right. No, that is an excellent question because that question has been asked multiple times to me. And that question, the only way I can answer that question is first and foremost, do you believe in yourself?
Right.
Do you believe that you are okay?
Right.
Because you have the ADHD diagnosis, does that make you different as in you, the human being? No. And we
Right.
have to understand that ADHD is just a characteristic, it is not your identity.
Right.
It's not something that means there's anything wrong with you, that you're broken, none of that. And if we can take that stigma off of it by being ourselves and not necessarily being like a bully and going, well, I have ADHD, so stick it. No, it's
Yeah.
more like I have ADHD, meaning I have a characteristic, just like I have brown hair and I have brown eyes. Those are characteristics of who I am, but that's not
Right.
my total being.
Right.
And I think a big part is education,
Yeah.
trying to teach the people that doubt. And if they don't want to hear it, okay, let them and let them be who they are and accept that
Yeah.
with some of the same things that you're having where people are like, You just made that up because everybody else is.
Yeah.
Or you're just different because you're just trying to be, like a stick in the mud and push back. And all
Yeah.
these things that people try to project on you,
Oh, yes.
just dump them in the basket. Dump them in the basket and be like, "Psh, that's garbage. That's not true." And really look at them and start understanding that it's okay to be you.
Right.
I'm 53, right? I don't, and this is a very bold statement, and not everybody can be here, but I don't really care.
Yeah.
I don't really care if they think I do or don't. I don't really care if they believe me or not because they're not in my skin, they're not in my brain, and they don't have to deal with me every day. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like you get up in the morning, you got to deal with you
Yes.
24/7.
Yes. Sometimes
So
it's a
be
lot.
happy where you are. It
Yeah.
is a lot. It really is. And there are days where you feel like I want to crawl in a hole, put a rock over me, and don't anybody bug me. And then there's other days where you like want to go dancing up and down the street, and have a good
Yes.
time.
Yes. That is
Days that
every
are,
day.
yeah, those days that are rough, find a buddy. Find someone
Right.
to reach out to. I partner with a company called ND Out Loud. They create the capability of having body doubling every single day.
Okay.
They create the capability of being able to have somebody you can connect with and talk to because sometimes it's very isolating.
It is.
Sometimes it's very much like, I don't know if I should say anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Because
you
then I'm
want,
weird.
right. But just like, what is it? The character from Lilo and Stitch, Stitch, he
Yes.
says stay weird. It's okay. Be a little weird.
Right.
But don't keep covering and putting that mask over yourself because all that does is make it worse.
Right.
So
Yeah.
be yourself, be bold. And one thing that I think really helps is be the magnificent person you were meant to be.
Absolutely.
Somebody gave me that piece of advice, and that changed it all for me because I thought, you know what? I am magnificent. I am somebody who is
Yeah.
strong and bold and understanding and lovable and compassionate. And I have all these things. Stop hiding it. Allow it
Right.
to be out there and get a buddy to talk to. Get somebody that can relate and go from
That's
there.
important. That
It'll
is
really
makes
change.
it makes such a difference. And I have thankfully serendipitously met a very it's she's now my one of my business partners, but I've been so grateful to have her because it's like I've been able to really unpack all of the emotional traumas that have happened because of just not knowing what I was dealing with, feeling different, feeling odd, feeling like I'm never gonna fit in because I'm not, but that's an okay
Right.
thing too, and to celebrate that. And so it's like changed how I've been able to show up and the confidence that I've been able to help my clients with because that's what we just talked about. Like all the things that you're
Right.
talking about, we just did a breakthrough challenge this week and we were working on, dealing with that fear, dealing with that doubt and really putting it aside and saying, okay, subconscious, we're reprogramming you by actually going out, doing the action and taking steps towards whatever goals we have. And that's where we're going to build our confidence. And that way we don't feel
Yes.
so isolated by having that community. So we're working on building a community specifically for highly creatives that are just, dealing with this stuff, but they also
Right.
want to build a business. It's hard when you've got to deal with the mental stuff and the personal stuff and then build the business and you're like, what do I
It
do?
is. And that's where it comes in. You've really got to create your own process and your own system. If
Yep.
you have the process that works for your brain, and you're going to flow. You may have times where you work super hard and then you crash. You super
Right.
hard and crash, but understand that that's not a bad thing. That's your workflow.
Right.
Okay. And that's okay. It's understanding that yours is not the same as hers or his or anybody else out there. It's
Right.
your workflow. Figure that out, and then the process and systems will come into place. They
Right.
just will.
And what you're saying too is like you're coming in and you're helping people figure out how they work and you're helping them with their goals.
Mhm.
It's like no matter what process I can give my clients, they really have to see what it is and take that process and make it into
Yeah.
something that works with their brain. Like there is not one right process for everybody to get that work done. It's a that's
No,
there's
no.
no cookie cutter.
It's a trial and error. I hate to say it, but it's a trial and error. But
Yeah.
the way you declutter your room is not the way I would declutter my room. But I can give you suggestions. You pick up on those suggestions, like, no, that won't work for me, but oh, that will. Oh, that would be great. A simple tip of work for 15 minutes, take a 5-minute break, or work for 15 minutes, take 15-minute break, whatever works for you.
Right.
But we don't have that capacity sometimes to figure it out, to try
Yes.
and get those details. We need somebody else to be
Yes.
like, now, Tiffany, try it this way, try it for
Hmm.
2 days. Okay, now come back and let me know, and then we'll go to the next step. And it's just small things like that. That's what a coach is there for,
Right.
because they're the ones who have the experience, have walked through it. They're not going to say this is the only way. They're going to say, try this way. How did that
Yeah.
work for you? Oh, it didn't. Okay, then let's try this. So
Yeah.
it's that's where the importance comes in having your counterpart or your complement person is one way of saying it, to be able to balance you out and being able to go from one thing to another,
Yes.
especially when you're doing a business. Business entrepreneurship is hard to deal with,
Very.
and it's hard to deal with if you have no process and system.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. And that's why we're really trying to help those creatives that are they've got all these brilliant ideas but no plan to actually get from point A to point B. I've been there so many times. It's like, man, I feel like I've been doing this for 15 years, but I really haven't because I just found out and I'm late 30s,
Hmm.
and so I just found out that I'm ADHD, and so I'm like, those years don't count because I didn't realize that I had to work with my brain differently. Yes, they count in terms of experience, but they don't count in terms of me
And knowledge.
feeling bad about it taking this long for me to get here.
Yes. Yes. And you know what? I have this sitting here beside me. This is my planner. How many of us fight with planners? How many of us don't use them well?
Yeah.
This is the first planner I've used for a year, actually
Wow.
a whole year, over a year. It's
Wow.
mine. I've made it myself. I've created it. But because I did that, now I have a planner that I'm in the process of creating and selling for other people. But the
Right.
point is that sometimes it takes a while.
Yep.
I figured out my process. I figured it out through my creativity. I figured it out because I was not willing to just say, I'm just going to do it their way. It doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Right. Well, and for us as ADHD, like we're a little bit off the beaten path. So sometimes we have a little bit of rebelliousness in us, but that's just because of our creativity. We're like, no, we can figure out a better, more efficient way. And I'm going to figure this out, how to make
Right.
it work. But
And I need color and I need it this way, I need it that way.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I need all the
Mhm.
colors and I need it all organized, really pretty.
Right?
Yes, I
Exactly.
agree. No, so
Yep.
for moms specifically, because I know we touched a little bit about homeschool. I know there's a lot of moms you probably deal with that are either stay-at-home moms or
Mhm.
moms that are trying to deal with their children all day
Right.
long. Do you have some like things that you can share specifically for them? Because I know I find myself getting overstimulated all the time, and I'm just in zone out mode and working because I literally
Doom scrolling.
cannot,
Yep. Yep.
yes, handle. And it's not
Hmm.
even like the doom scrolling. I'm like, nope, I'm working on my business. I'm a businessaholic, but
Gotcha.
I'm like,
Gotcha.
that is my disassociation plan. But we can't do that as moms because we
Well,
have to take care of our children.
yeah, darn it. No, I'm just kidding. It is important. It is really important that we figure out what is our overstimulation, how can we get out of that overstimulation, and then teaching our kids too, because sometimes what we don't realize is our kids, if they're ADHD, they're overstimulated, so they're acting out. So therefore that triggers our overstimulation. So then we're acting out. And so all it is a yelling fest. And
Yes,
then
every
that does
day.
nothing. Yes, exactly. So some of the things that I've given as examples for moms to try is, what about a quiet zone? It doesn't
Mm,
have to be forever. Find the zone that they can be in, that this is the only thing you do in this zone. Like, set up zones in your home. This is the quiet zone where you read. If you're in this area, then you have to be quiet. Well, what does quiet mean? Well, quiet means no talking. You can be reading, you can be watching something, you can be listening to something, but everything has to be quiet. Headphones on, earplugs in, whatever. So that's a
right.
quiet zone. Another option is we really hate structure, but we really thrive on it and we
Yes.
need it.
Hmm.
So for most moms that I have found that felt a lot like what you're talking about, I usually say, what structure do you have? And usually I hear, well, not really. Okay, then you're creating some of that overstimulation for yourself because if you don't know what you're going to do, they don't know what they're going to do. And if they don't know what they're going to do, you know how you feel when you have no idea what's going to happen next, right?
Yeah.
So it's creating small steps of structure. The same routine every day gets them into those habits, getting up at the same time, which I know for us moms, some nights are just, ugh, in the morning, we're just tired. Okay, but still get up, create a nap time then, or a quiet time, or something like that, so that they know, okay, well, if we're up late, we do this. If we're up, if we're up early, then we do this. These are the steps that we go through. Your routine is wake up, brush your teeth, go potty, get breakfast, then you get dressed. If they have those routines, guess what? It settles the kids down, which then in turn settles moms down, which in turn allows you to do what you need to do, which
Yeah.
is so hard for us to understand that sometimes.
Yeah.
So those are just a couple of quick tips. I mean, there's plenty I can share with you, but goodness gracious, I'm not going to overwhelm you with all of them
Of
because then you'll
course.
be like, oh my God, too many.
There's so many to implement all at once. I can't do it. No. It's really important to, like you're saying,
Right.
pick one step and take that step and implement that one thing for even a couple weeks and see how it goes. And then come back to the
Yes.
drawing board and then keep doing that step and then focus on doing another one. Even, like the 21 days
Right.
to make a habit, do that one step for that long. Now, I will say we've been attempting to have a morning routine and I've told the kids what to do in what order for, I don't know, 9 years now, and there's still no
I'll give
structure.
you a little bit more. I'll give you a little bit more on that tip. Not every one of them can take a list of stuff and do it. So I have one child that if you gave him more than one thing,
Yeah,
nothing
me
got
too.
done. You can only give one thing at a time. And then there's the other one who has to have it written down so they can check it off. And then there's another one who's like, don't tell me what to do. I already know. So you have different types of styles you're working with, which also adds to it too. But when you find out their style, that's when you tap into the style for that child.
Yep.
And it's amazing when you can do that. I know it's a lot. I know
It is
mamas,
a
it
lot.
feels it is, especially if you don't find out till you have more than one or two kids. That's a lot because you're trying to keep them all under, like, let's go. We got to get this done. There's so many things to take care of. You've got school, you've got this, you've got that. Okay. But
Yeah.
when you talk to them, can you, okay, guys, you have 5 minutes because
Yeah.
they don't know what 5 minutes is.
No,
So
there's
use
time
the,
blindness all
yeah,
over the
use the
place.
time. Definitely. Timers are the one of the biggest important things in a home with ADHD
Yep.
with time blindness. Because
Yes.
you could say, "Shoot, I'll be done in about 10 minutes." And I'll be like, okay. And then 3 hours later, I'll come out to you and be like, are you done yet? And you're like, I said 10 minutes.
Yes. We've been using the kitchen stove a lot lately because I'm like, okay, I'm giving you a timer to get this done. If you can't get it done in this time, then we're gonna have consequences because we're done. We're not doing this. Three
Mhm.
hours to get
Yeah.
a 5 minute thing done.
Right, right. And helping them understand what is 5 minutes, what is an hour, helping them understand how long is that really? Because you could say to somebody, you have 300 seconds. And to them, that would be like, oh my gosh, I gotta hurry. But if you say you got 5 minutes, then they're like, oh, I got time. I got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
So saying things differently too is a big deal. So
Yeah.
it's just, like I said, it's a lot of trial and error. And
Oh
there's a
yeah.
lot of errors that we get
Yeah.
through to get to the point that it works.
Yeah, yes. I think the biggest key point here is to just be like, you can't give up after the first time you're trying to get something done. Even with business, like, okay, I've been trying to do a few different things here and it's just not clicking or it's not hitting my target audience or whatever, but I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna
Mhm.
keep, doing my research and figuring out what's going to be best for them. And
Right.
same thing with your kids. You're not going to give up on them and just say, "Oh, well, you're a
Mhm.
lost cause." You can't you have to do the same thing for yourself and be like, "Okay,
Yeah.
self. I'm not a lost cause. I just have to figure out what works for me. It might take me a little while, and that's okay.
Right. And give yourself some grace. Holy cow, your brain is working 5,000 times faster than most people, which means sometimes you aren't staying on the topic long enough to learn the whole thing. You're only getting bits and you're like, okay, I'm going to try it. 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 And then you try it and you're like, that didn't work. I'm going to try something else. No, 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 no. Try it, review it, look at it again and say, did that system work? No. Okay, was there something I missed? Or is
We
there,
go
I
back.
only took a bite of the pie, the whole pie, you know? So it's a lot of things. And people don't understand that businesses take on average 2 to 5 years to be a functioning, fully profitable business.
Yes.
I'm in that too. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
fight with it all the time.
Yeah.
But the reality is we don't have to put that limit on ourselves.
Hmm.
Do it. That's the only thing. If you're doing it and moving forward, that's all that matters. Take a step. If you're moving and taking a step and moving and
That,
taking a step, it's getting a little
yes.
bit better each time,
Right.
but we want it to be this much growth.
Like right now, like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Why is this not working
By the end of
already?
the day, right. By
Yeah.
the end of the day, I want to be a millionaire. Okay, well, that's just like saying by the end of the day, I want to lose 50 pounds. Doesn't happen.
No.
Right?
Right.
We
Being
want to,
realistic
but
is sometimes very challenging, especially when we're such visionaries and we're looking, like 10 steps
yes.
ahead and we're like, I see the lights. I see the light at the end of the tunnel and it's gonna
Right?
happen. And then you're chugging away at it and it's like I'm not seeing the light and I'm still not seeing the light. What is happening? It's something that's wrong with me. And it's like, no, just maybe your process
Mm-hmm.
isn't working for you. Maybe you're not working with your brain. Maybe you haven't set the
Right?
system into place. It was interesting. I was listening to another mentor of mine, and he's like, until you try something for at
Mm-hmm.
least 60 to 100 times, you cannot say that it didn't work.
Right. And on top of it, for us with ADHD, we need to make it fun. So how can you make
Yes.
this learning curve fun? So for
Yes.
me, like a tech person, I am not working on it, but I'm still, I've got a lot to learn. So one day I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to do reels on Instagram.
Yeah.
That was my thought, right? And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna make this fun. And this is literally how it came about. I looked down at my feet and I had cartoon socks on. And I'm like, oh, that would be so cool. I'm going to put cartoon videos on there, cartoon reels. So it made it fun. So I started doing it. So now I know how to do a reel on Instagram. I have
Awesome.
160 something. I probably have two pair of socks, but that's okay because
That's
it made it
okay.
fun and it's
Yeah.
still fun for me, right? So what can you do that makes it fun to help you move that needle, to
Right.
move it a little bit forward for your business, move it a little bit forward for your family, and dealing with all of the chaos. I tell people embrace your chaos because you know what?
Yes.
Sometimes in that chaos, there's a lot of fun, but there's also a lot of things that you learn that you can now help someone else.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Exactly. This has been such a
Excuse me.
pleasure, Jay. I'm so glad you could join me today. And we're going to be putting the show notes below in the description. So all of your business information will be down there, as well as you mentioned another company that you partner with, so we can put their information as well. And then we can share all of your
Awesome.
socials. So that way, anybody who wants to get in touch with you absolutely can get some help. I really appreciate you, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Take care, everyone.